Hello everyone, thank you for joining. Today we are going to talk about home birth and we have a home birth expert with us, Gauri, and she is going to talk about all things related to home birth. So let me just get her on in. Hey, hi. Hello. Hi everyone, thank you for joining. Thank you so much. Hi Vidya. Hi Gauri. Oh, okay, I think there's some issue. Hi Monica. Hi Praveen. Vidya and Gauri, somehow, I can see your I can see your request, but I'm not able to accept those requests. So I'm just going to send you guys request and let's see if that works.
Hey, hi.
Hey, hi Vidya. There's again some issue. Okay, I was able to see your request, but I was not able to accept it.
Okay, yeah, it didn't even let me send it in the first place,
Okay.
actually.
Hey, hi
Hey,
Gauri.
Gauri.
Hi.
Hi.
Okay, I'll
Hi.
introduce myself. I'm Nilofer. We haven't spoken before, but it's a pleasure to know you. Thank you so much for joining
You
us today.
too. Thank you.
And I'm Vidya.
Nice. And I'm Gauri. And thank you for inviting me to speak about uh, a very nice topic to me.
Thank you so much for joining us. It's a real pleasure having you with us today, Gauri. So I'll
Thank
start
you.
off with my first question. Um, or else maybe you can give a brief introduction about yourself before we start up with the first question.
Okay. I'm from South Africa, but I'm living in India. And I support women to have home births in South Africa and here. And this is, yeah, my journey to home birth has been quite rewarding and interesting. And maybe I'll share little bits in answer to your questions also, how I came to home births, because I was studying medicine. So I graduated as a doctor in South Africa, but during my third year, I had a home birth of my first son. And that's really just where everything changed. And then I saw such differences in how women were giving birth, really. So whether they were giving birth at the hospital, and I was learning, I was going through my classes and I'd see what was happening, and I asked a lot of questions because it wasn't like the birth I'd experienced, which was a very beautiful and positive and wonderful experience. So then my whole kind of career since then became much more focused on supporting women to have beautiful births, basically. And through that, I learned more and more about why it's important and just kind of everything around it. Yeah.
Wow, that's really
Nice.
lovely to know. And now I'm more intrigued to ask questions about your own story than what we have planned for. Um,
Yeah.
We can do
it's
both, actually. I mean, it's such a
okay.
huge topic, so we'll see how the conversation goes, maybe.
Sure, sure. I'm going to start off with my first question, Gauri. And we had posted a story today on Instagram asking people if they have any questions about home birth. And it looked like people were curious to know that whether this thing is trending in India. That was I really had too many questions on that. That whether home births are trending in India, and see, it's quite obvious because we have progressed as a society. We have progressed medically, but then home births were kind of part of our ancient what to say, our ancestors. They were part of our ancestors life, and nowadays when we talk about birth, people cannot think of anything less than a hospital, a good well equipped hospital. So my first question to you is, can you please explain to us from all of your experience, what exactly is a home birth?
Okay, so I think when we think of a home birth, I think different people are probably thinking of different things in their minds. And actually, home birth can be many different things. And it most often depends, well, one, on the mother's intention and how she wishes it to be, and also on the care provider, because you might have different care providers who just work in different ways. And they are all under the umbrella of home birth midwives or home birth support or doulas. So within home birth, you might have water birth, you might have, you can go, there's so many varieties of births that you can kind of call them. You can have more clinical home births that are also more kind of out of hospital births, but still use all the same procedures or interventions as the hospital. Or not all the same, but similar. And you might have some which actually support women in a very hands-off way and really let the body work. And for me, I have ended up really resonating with that way because I really see the biology work. And when you see the biology work, there's no need for the medical interventions, and it actually becomes a very magical, beautiful experience. Not that having interventions doesn't do that, but there's something about home births that really just opens up those connections with Mother Earth and Mother Nature in a very deeply satisfying way. So that's why I think you'll see that some people who have experienced it or who have read up about it get very passionate about it, because you almost want to preach it because it's such a rewarding experience often. So a home birth, that's not even, it's like an introduction to your answer. A home birth is a birth at home, and it might even be like a BBA in South Africa. They call that a birth before arrival at the hospital. But that's also a type of home birth, an unplanned home birth, perhaps. But a home birth is basically a birth at home. And in my understanding, you would, unless you're choosing to do undisturbed and unassisted with no birth professional, which is a whole another topic, a home birth midwife would be there, or I'm actually a doctor in that sense, and so I'm a home birth doctor. And I specifically choose to only do home births, not hospital births. And in the home birth, there's much more freedom and there's much more responsibility for the mother. And you're basically at home, so you have all you bring what you need from the hospital, and the midwife brings her medical bag and the emergency things like IV lines and catheters and medicines. And then it depends on the style of the midwife and but you're allowed to move, so the woman can be comfortable at home, and then the details follow in so many different stories of different women.
Thank you, Gauri. Vidya, I'm so sorry, I'm going to deviate a little bit from our previous line of questions. Okay, it's mainly because of the kind of questions we received today for our story. So, Gauri, in India, if I'm particularly talking about the women in India, there's this kind of fear. I would not say all women have it, because you cannot really generalize it. But then the majority population has this fear about birth. That is kind of predominant in women. And home birth is something that scares them even further. Because kind of that perception is built over the years or over the decades. I would say that giving birth in a hospital is safe, because you have medical interventions at hand, you have doctors, you have different specialists available in hospitals. And then only the thought of giving birth to your child at home. These things have been trending in other countries, as we see in in other Western countries. But in India, somehow there's a kind of laid back attitude. And this is not my perception. This is the kind of questions that we receive. That's why I'm asking you this question. So people are really scared. How can Okay, the question would to you would be, why would someone prefer a home birth over a hospital birth?
One, just to add on to Nilufer's question, right? When we took a poll, we asked everybody, nobody even wanted to learn about home birth. Everybody said that majority, not everybody, majority of them said they don't want to take risk.
Okay, now I just want to add something to Vidya. Vidya's point.
Yes.
I had my first baby. I have one kid, and I delivered my baby at a hospital because I don't shy back from admitting the fact that I was very less aware about childbirth and almost everything related to childbirth. And then very obvious choice for me was to walk over to a hospital and hand myself into the hands of doctors, trusted doctors, of course. Now, but if you ask me personally, if at all I plan on having another baby, I would definitely go in for a home birth. That's just because after giving birth to my baby, I have completely been involved in this area. I've been working um, related to postpartum. That's why my view has changed. But then, for a person who is a first time mother, who is going to be a first time mother, how would we say that, say something to her, to, kind of explain her what is the benefit of having a home birth over giving birth in an hospital, and how safe is it? Because safety is something that's predominantly there in everyone's mind.
Yeah, I can appreciate the fear because I think that the medical system and that's the system really has been trying to inundate us with this fear for many, many generations. So the response is the success of that. But I would also say that I don't like to be in a position, in a sense, to convince anyone about a home birth, because if you are fearful of a home birth, then you're probably not the right person for a home birth. And there's different kinds of different kinds of people. So it's just in a mood of not like convincing, but really sharing from my heart that what I have seen and what I have experienced out comparing a home birth and a hospital birth. I actually wrote an article called a few years ago, 15 differences. And some people responded that some of those differences were also practiced in their birth centers where they gave birth in Finland and things like this. But I am also in India, and I know that Indian labor wards are also very, very different to a birth center in the West. The main reason, just to get to the point really, is that birth is a very important event. And during birth, when the child is having his first experience of passing through the mother's vagina, because it's at home, so it's going to be a natural birth. But even if it's an abdominal birth, the whole birth is an event where the child is really imprinting what they are, how they know the world. So it's a time where what is happening is excruciatingly important in terms of the child's nature, the child's psyche, and the very deep emotional and spiritual development of the child. And when we are not conscious of that, we create trauma and harm. And a lot of us are recovering from this, our own birth trauma and harm. And this is what, when you start going for breath therapy, a lot of them have become also aware that it comes down to our trauma in and birthing out of the womb. Now, why that happens is a huge part of antenatal psychology, and that's there's amazing research around that. But that's what it is. And so knowing that, and then having experienced a very beautiful, gentle birth where my child came out and there was no rush, there was no shouting, there was no lights, there was really just a peaceful, family-centered environment. And then going and working at the hospitals where I would see very abusive things shouted at the mother, awful things done to the baby, complete panic, and kind of like mini chaos. Every time to quickly cut the cord, and shouting at the mother and pressing on the fundus. And there's worse things that happen in many different kinds of hospitals, and I've seen that also. But when you know that it can be another way, you start questioning, well, why is it that? Why is it not like that? Why can't it be kinder in the hospital? If kindness and gentleness is so important for a child that is coming into the world, why are we not kinder? There's many different reasons for that also, but that is the main reason why I keep coming down to home birth, because I can see so deeply how it affects a mother and a baby. Now, the interventions each have their own effect as well, physically, for long-term postpartum health, pelvic floor, and just our own birth trauma and our own psyche. So we're almost getting more and more trained and more taken away from our own sense of trusting our body and knowing that actually we can do it. And actually our connection with Mother Nature is very, very strong. And that is what I've found now, like after working in the field for 15 years or so, that this is where medicine really falls short for me, because there's so much wisdom in Mother Nature and not technology. So basically the hospital is a technological birth where we are putting the emphasis and the trust outside of ourselves. And a home birth is when you really come into yourself and you know there's no pain medication, there's no epidural, and so you can't, you come into this place of yourself where you actually feel your own power as well. So, and because when the biology works better, when you're feeling safe, I mean, it's just pure biology, pure primal mammalian primate biology for a human body is what it needs to go into labor and to birth. And I find the hospital doesn't support that at all. But I find at home it's best supported. And of course, there's times when you have to transfer, and there's, all those questions might come up also. But for me, to try and keep it as short as possible, that would be my main differences. And then you can go into details under all of that as well.
Thank you so much for that explanation, Gauri. That really kind of like, I could like reassure myself with whatever I was thinking when you said those words. See, I feel like, I've already had a baby. I've experienced that. I can relate to each and every word that you said, and I completely approve of it. Okay, I completely agree to it, and I completely believe in everything that you said. What I was looking for was something to a woman who was going to give birth for the first time. Some piece of advice from you to a woman who is maybe in a second trimester, third trimester, thinking about the ways in which she can opt in for childbirth. If there's some kind of advice you can give, because see, I'm completely a believer of home birth right now. Okay, but I was not like this 3 years back. When I had my baby. Uh, so after having experienced birth, I can really relate and I can really feel every word that you're saying. But someone who has never felt or who has never experienced it, it's really difficult for that person to relate to what we are talking. So some kind of advice, if you can give to the women out there who are going to have their first baby, on why would they consider, or let them start looking for home birth, because I personally feel that it's going to be an amazing experience. It's really going to be amazing. And maybe you can even share from your personal experience. As you said, you were a third year medical student when you had your first baby, and you opted for a home birth. Why did you opt for a home birth, and how was your experience? Like, why? Because it was your first baby. You were a medical student, so the very obvious choice would be you having given birth to your baby in a hospital setting. But then why did you choose to have a home birth? and how did it change you? Maybe your experience could inspire other women out there. And it could, like, it's not about convincing anyone to go and have a home birth. It's more about, like, letting people explore this area before they give birth to their baby. So that, like, they can take a call for themselves, they can judge for themselves.
Yeah, I think you're right. And just hearing people's stories is very, very helpful. So it helps women know what is happening and to decide for themselves. So I was thinking back, why did I choose to have a home birth? Because it was something I just knew. I didn't really explain it much. I just knew I wanted to. And when I was thinking about it, I had heard about a friend's birth, and she told me about her birth. Not in a hospital. And sorry, my son's just come home. Okay, so she had a home birth, and she had an amazing experience. And it was really listening to her birth that I just knew that was how I wanted to birth. And I think it's something like that. It's coming from, you kind of know, but sometimes you don't know that you know, because you might not know it's an option, or you might not know about it, or you might, because it's not what we are fed on mainstream social media. And we do have a lot of fears, and there's a lot of fears fed into it. But for me, it was kind of once you know, you know. And then by my second baby, I was also working in the maternity wards then at a hospital, and they were kind of joking and said, what happens if you went into labor here? And I kind of said, I'd take the ambulance home. and they, I don't know what they thought, but that was my mood. It was just exactly what I was convinced in that sense. And then the more I mean, maybe a lot of the home births I do, I can tell you some reasons why first-time mothers, I mostly get first-time mothers, do a home birth is also, I guess, just a knowing. Some are scared of the hospital. They just don't want to be in a hospital. They don't want to be examined rudely or aggressively. They might be having some, so many of us are holding trauma in our pelvic area, and it might, we might read different things, and we might be scared of, the opposite. So we might be scared of the risks of all of that in a hospital. And other women are doing it because they just feel connected to that part of the culture and that way of doing it. So many different reasons. And then I think once you start looking into it, that's when you start getting more answers. And then you could look into it in a sense of looking at just how a human biology works and what is needed for labor to work in terms of the hormones. And that's something I always explain in an antenatal class, so we can support the hormones in the best way at home. And those things are not practiced in a hospital, so it's kind of like, well, how can I support my labor best if I go to a hospital? Oh, well, maybe shouldn't go to a hospital then. And some people want their family with them, and some people want doulas, and those experiences are very important. And because the rules have become more and more restricted now over the last 2 years, they might choose home. So I think that's why there's been also an explosion. There might also be, it's just gone out of my head, maybe coming back, or maybe separation from their baby, because in many hospitals in India, they separate automatically after birth, and a mother might feel very strongly she does not want to be separated, or, so different things like that. A reason you might really want a home birth, but because you're dependent on in-laws or family, there's a lot of pressure from family that you just like, I surrender, and you just go mainstream. And then you heal from it afterwards. There's a lot of healing that happens afterwards. So those are a few reasons off the top of my head, just, in chatting and coming to see why people choose that. It's personal, I guess. You have to feel what's right for you. So you really have to feel it's a very personal thing, a baby being born from your womb, and really it should just be your decision. Everything about it should be your decision. And then people choose home because they know they'll have that respect and that consent and
Yeah, thank you for that, Gauri.
yeah.
Yeah. How can family support women in
But your
home birth?
voice is
If
not
she
clear.
wants to. Okay. How can how can a woman's family support in home birth?
That's such a nice question because often support is really, really difficult, and there's a lot of fear coming from family members. And so I've had discussions with family members who are doctors and surgeons, and they've come and visited me, and we've sat down and we've chatted about it. Um, and the family is most supportive of just supporting her, what she wishes, and then staying out of the way. I mean, like the in-laws and the husband, you want the husband around if that's the wish of the mum. Depends what the mum wants. It depends what the mum wants, because often if there's family members at the birth, the anxiety is very tangible, and it affects things. But the support afterwards, it can be really great. And that's the whole well, that's your area also, the postpartum support from family.
Yes.
So that's where they can really kind of do a lot. But support, you want to support, you don't want to support by fear. You want to support research and find out. Look at the evidence. Look at people's stories. Stories are so powerful.
Right.
Yeah.
But okay. How can we prepare? I mean, we need to have some backup plan as well. Home birthing is good, but can everybody go for home birth? That is home birth is a big question. And yeah, how to prepare oneself and how to, opt for a backup
Yes.
plan and how to plan for that.
Yeah, so we always have to have a backup, and we have to work in collaboration with a gynae at a hospital for that backup. So that is essential to have, and that I always make an effort to really have a nice communication and process with them because it's so important. And then I pray that I won't need them at all, and that's the best. And so you always, depending where you are, you need to have that. And I find it best to just do personally, go and meet the gynae, have a discussion, say this is who I am, this is what I do, and how would you like me to transfer if I have to transfer? So that's what I do wherever I am. And then how to prepare in terms of preparing yourself. Labor classes are wonderful. I mean, labor classes that go into the pain management, or I guess sometimes you have to be tailored a bit for home birth because you're not gonna, but sometimes not because there might be a need to transfer. So it's good to know all the options and what could happen if you transfer. But preparing is very, very important and really does help a lot. And there's different ways to do that also, either classes or online classes. There's so many childbirth educators in India, and hypnobirthing is amazing. And you can prepare, your body and your kind of cognitive mind, but you also want to prepare your mind in terms of your mindset and feeding the determination and preparing yourself to face your fears. So you actually work through your fears, preparing yourself how different ways you might deal with the pain, more in a mindset way. So there's very beautiful ways to prepare. And then, you get exercise, nutrition, because you want to keep moms healthy during the whole pregnancy because you can't have high-risk moms birthing at home. So, yeah, that was the other part of your question, who can. So you would need to kind of be low-risk mothers and, yeah.
And how can this affect postpartum or the fourth trimester? I mean,
So
does it have an impact?
postpartum, I think it does have an impact because, well, first of all, the first hour of postpartum is very, very gentle and very calming and very bonding. It is very bonding hormonally. So we really use that time to connect and, you might, if you want the uterus to contract more, then you want optimally the baby to be on the chest, breastfeeding. The eye to eye is also increasing oxytocin. So all those things come into play very automatically, actually, in a home birth. And that's the immediate effect. And then that has a really on-running effect for breastfeeding and for just the bonding and the skin to skin. And so when I speak about postpartum, it's a continuation of that, and it's really 40 days is really a baby moon. It's a cocoon where the mother can recover and rest. And I mean, the Indian traditions are so beautiful when the family just comes and helps, and so many families know innately what to cook. And the Ayurvedic way is so marvelous for postpartum, and that brings in a lot of other traditions and rituals, which really do supports the mother's recovery. So I kind of get quite strict sometimes about postpartum, staying in bed, having everyone else do everything so the mother can stay in bed and just get up to go to the loo. And that's kind of what I say, and all the details are really just being able to make that possible. So when you're at the home, you don't have to go anywhere. The midwife will come to you for postpartum checks. And otherwise, the way it affects is that it's kind of just a natural continuation. I like to say it also affects it because there's a sense of a transition that happens during birth into motherhood. And when you are sovereign in that and you're making your own informed consent, you also kind of get a download of appreciating that your body is capable and that you can do it. And you can get, you might tap into that anywhere also, and we really should, because all mothers are, no matter what birth you've had. But I find that the home birth makes it easier to kind of tap into that feeling of, I can do this. I can trust my body. I can trust my body to breastfeed. I can trust my body to recover. And when you have that, it's almost, there's a pathway that continues like that in motherhood.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Yeah. I mean, I'm just trying to have an imagination of whatever you're saying.
But you're also working with postpartum, so kind of your ideal of trying not to have all the problems that come with postpartum is keeping the simple support there.
I completely agree with you on that, Gauri, because the thing that you said, it's having a home birth. It's definitely going to be like the best way to bring your baby into this world. That's my opinion. I'm not generalizing it, but in my opinion, having a home birth is the best way to uh, give your baby a start of his or her life, because having birth in a hospital is, as you said, noisy, and everyone is in a hurry. Baby is delivered. Come on, get onto the placenta, cut the cord, and clean the baby, get his weight, get this done, get that done. Because everyone is actually doing their own job, and they just want to finish off their job and complete it. But when you have a home birth, you're giving the whole process its own time, and you're birthing at your own pace. Nobody is actually in a hurry of completing their shift and rushing off to their homes.
Exactly.
You have that time for yourself. You can take as much as you want to birth the baby, as much as you want to birth the placenta. Of course, safety is definitely important. You have to take measures to ensure that you're safe, you're in safe hands, and if at all, definitely, if there is any high risk pregnancy, do not opt for a home birth, and nobody would suggest that. But if things are right, if you do not have any kind of risk during your pregnancy, if everything is going normally, then having birth is definitely going to be a beautiful out of the life experience. That's what I can feel and I can say about it. And your baby, the initial moments after the baby is born, that time is when the baby has just come out into this world, and you are experiencing so many different things. It's like, a completely a new world for the mother as well, because she has not experienced anything like this ever before in her life. And giving yourself that time, giving your baby that kind of calm and peaceful environment, and letting things take their own pace instead of rushing it in. Having baby onto your chest, giving that skin to skin, letting the baby latch himself or herself onto your breast, having that first, breastfeeding session immediately after your baby is born. All these things, there's there are floods of hormones going on, like, fluctuating in a woman's body after she gives birth. And doing
Sure.
these things is definitely going to give her that kind of, like, path forward. She knows what to look forward to. Instead of, like, being all aggressive in a hurry, that's all going to increase the stress and the tension for the mother
Yeah.
and for the baby. I'm not really worried about all the other family members over here, but then for the mother and for the baby, it definitely
Exactly.
increases, the tension, and it kind of like creates a stressful environment. So
Mm.
having things go on its own pace is definitely something that, I would prefer. I would really, really, really prefer. Having a home birth is like, a different kind of experience. I have not yet experienced it, but then, I can really imagine it. When you explain things, it was beautiful. And again, as you mentioned before, it's not about convincing anyone, but then explore things. If you are watching this section, if you are watching us now or later, uh, explore home birth. Look out for options, because this is an option, and
Yes.
you may experience something really beautiful in your life.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, but if a woman is going to opt for a home birth, whom should they contact? Like,
That's a
how
very
to
good
get in touch?
question.
Yeah.
Well, it depends where you are to see if there's midwives who will support you at home. Or sometimes, the nearest is a birth center, which is normally they make it very beautiful, so it's like a home away from home. So
Right.
that
Okay.
in India, there's a few home birth midwives,
Yeah.
um, but generally it's uh, yeah, I guess the contacting the midwives at the nearest birth center would help.
Okay.
Where I live in a kind of a small international community here, and
Mm-hmm.
so I have quite mixed clients of local and international. So that's how it works here with me. And in South Africa, there's a different process. There's you can access home birth midwives in most countries. In India, it's not so easy. It's true,
Yeah.
but it is
Yeah.
possible. You hear all the time people having home births, and sometimes midwives have to travel, or the client has to travel. So sometimes you have to be a bit creative in seeing how to make it possible, and trust that it will flow right when you start looking into it. You'll connect with the right people. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, Gauri. And we are at the end of our session, and would like to end with the last question. Since technology has, so many advantages, I completely agree. And yes, most of us without technology would not be even talking like this in the
Sure.
first place.
Yeah.
Yeah, so in the middle of technology, we are talking about home births. It's like, some might feel that, "Oh, why should I not take the comfort?" So how can they use this technology and also, have the advantage of home birth? How can we, club both?
Well, I guess I use some basic technology in a home birth because they do help for safety measures and for just checking. And so you have a Doppler to listen to the baby's heart. So I guess that's technology.
Okay.
But you don't have like other like technology like vacuum or cesarean or You don't have the technology of the medications because they have side effects, and the side effects are risky at home. So that's why, but you carry emergency drugs, so they take that technology. And you can use technology through a Zoom. You can have a Zoom birth with, people can support you at home. And there are doulas that work online. And I use, you see with a hospital birth, there's not much preparation or classes that necessarily go into it. So women might go to the hospital quite early. But in a home birth, or you can actually support quite a while on WhatsApp before the labor is in such a phase that you need to be there. So that if there's like prodromal labor or a long latent labor, you can, so that's also technology, you can have immediate contact like that. But so other technology that we don't have at a home birth, there's lists and lists, I guess. But does that answer a little bit? Is that what you're meaning, what you're referring to? Yeah.
It does answer a little.
Yeah, if you need to put on a drip, you can put on a drip. If you need emergency drugs, we've got that. You're taking some resuscitation for equipment for baby and for mother. So if needed, you can use that. So I have a big bag I take, but it's not technology like a cesarean or even episiotomy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But we take what we need to be safe, and responsible. Yes.
Yeah. No, I get, we can use, WhatsApp, Zoom call. That was all good points. We could use drugs. We can, have an immediate connection to the doctor, or, some emergency, so we can, but basically we need to plan. We cannot have last minute, we cannot say that, I'm going to have home birth now and everything is going to set in. It's not going to work. Yeah. So we need
it's
to,
really best to plan.
Yes.
Yeah, because then you can prepare your mind and your body, because it's different. It does take preparation, and it does take other commitments.
Right. Yeah. So we are done with our questions, Dr. Gauri, and it was really lovely talking to you. And thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Lovely to meet ladies.
Thank you so much for being with us today. And it was definitely a very lovely session. And I'm still more intrigued on your personal story. And I think we should definitely have another session where we can talk only about your story, because I'm really intrigued. I really would love to know a lot about it. Being a medical student and then opting in for a home birth, and now completely living in a natural setup, and a dramatic change that you have. So I think let's have another session for that. And it was lovely knowing you, Gauri, and thank you so much for joining us today. It was lovely. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.